are now honoured to have Tiernan Brady, Global Director of Inclusion in Clifford Chance, join us to share his experience of why business needs to be inclusive. Tiernan was Political Director in the Irish marriage referendum for Yes and led the successful Australian campaign for marriage, which allowed same-sex couples equal rights. Tiernan, you're very welcome this morning.
Hi, Jan. Hi, Jan. Thanks, Jan. I wanted to try and give one or two thoughts that I think are definitely going to only grow. I mean, the first thing is we all have seen, and we can all see in real time, how much inclusion has shot up through the priority lists of every company everywhere. And this is a pretty startling phenomenon in terms of the rate of change and how much it's gone up. That trend isn't going to slow down. It's only going to increase. To be honest, I think that's only a good thing, and more power to it. But I mean, as businesses, we need to be aware of that. There is going to be no slowdown. And whilst a lot of that has been triggered by events, the next phase of that will be our own people, our customers, our clients, our suppliers, and broader society asking us to update them and follow up on what we've done through these events. So as we've seen this year, last year now, with Black Lives Matters, we've seen with events right across the globe, how much of a spotlight was shone on inclusion and how much businesses were expected to stand up and take a stand. The next phase of that is going to be proving, well, what did you do? We've seen all this incredible noise, and we've seen all these loud commitments, and now people have to live them, prove them, and there's going to be an accountability phase to this. And I think in a way that was one of the things I thought might be useful. We think about this, and we should think about this as a permanent campaign, because inclusion has a goal, but there's no finish line. There is going to be no day where you all get to go, well, that was fantastic, we'll all go home, we're all equal. That's not how inclusion works. Inclusion is building a permanent culture. It's about who we are every day. It's about what we do in our firms, with our clients, and with the world every day. And that means even if you manage to get to a certain level, then you have to actually spend the rest of your life defending and championing that. It's not going to suddenly go permanently sustain itself. So I think one of the things that I wanted to say today was to try and think about, how do we think about this as a permanent campaign? How do we shift our mindsets in businesses to go, this is more than metrics. This needs to be sustained by mobilizing and activating and empowering people to become campaigners in their own space. And I think what's really important about that, I suppose, is, what kind of a campaign does that look like? And, it's easy because sometimes when we think about campaigns, we think about political campaigns, and they all have winners and they all have losers. That's not what this campaign has to be. And we have to mind that as businesses, as we look out our window and see the tone and the polarization of the world all going in only one direction. We have to realize that campaigning for us, delivering cultural change for us, isn't about creating a set of winners and losers. It's about persuading everybody. And that doesn't mean you're going to get to persuade everybody, but it means your positioning, your will, your goal has to be to persuade everybody. How do we engage and continuously educate, raise awareness, and, as we say, inspire and empower? And I think as businesses, it's really important for us for multiple reasons. One, because it's a value, as Oliver has said, this is a really important value for society. Two, I think if we're not taking charge of it, then the culture in our firms is going to look like a culture that someone else designed outside our firms. It will seep in through our buildings. So we have to mind that. But, the idea that culture is just going to build itself, it isn't true. So I think both in terms of self-interest, firms have to lead on inclusion, or else you're going to find yourself working in a culture that you had no role in building and are not in control of, and potentially one that is polarized, divisive, and does lasting damage to the experiences that people are having in your firm. So I think thinking about that as a permanent campaign, and as one that's a permanent campaign about persuasion, that there is no day where we're going to finish this, and there are no bad guys. There are only people we have yet to talk to and engage and persuade. And I think once we frame something like that, then you start to build initiatives like Jan's and and everything in open doors, but also internally as well, that really inspire and start to create the change you're looking for. I think the thing I was thinking that might be useful as well is the mindset shift that I think business has to have on this one. Is when we think about our values, we tend to instinctively think about the cost of them. And that's a natural habit. We've done it for probably centuries. And I think that's the bit that as firms we have to flip on its head. We have to think about the cost of not having them. What do we pay for deciding to bypass our values? And I was going to give you a story from Australia about this one to give you an example, a tale of two firms. All of this is on the public record, so we're not telling any tales. One is about a Qantas, the national airline, run by an Irishman called Alan Joyce. And he made a conscious decision to double down on his values and campaigning for equality and financially supporting organizations that were campaigning for equality. He knew there was a cost to that. And there was. He got a lot of stick. He got a lot of political stick. Members of the cabinet singled him out for abuse about, politicizing Qantas. But he didn't give in. He stuck his heels in. And despite all the abuse and having been attacked once because of his position, and all very powerful people trying to marginalize him because of his position, he held firm and emerged in Australia as a national icon. Not bad for an Irish fella, but emerged as a national icon because of the values. So he knew there was a cost, but he was prepared to pay it, and he knew there was a cost to not doing it. On the flip side, then another firm, which was a telecommunications firm, did the opposite. They decided that actually values are only worth having when times are good. So they had endorsed the marriage campaign in Australia, but then they got a letter from one of their big clients, the Archbishop of Sydney, who basically said, we see that you've endorsed marriage equality. We're going to review our account if you don't review your position on marriage equality. So they instantly looked at the cost of having values, and they folded. And what they did was they said, okay, and they wrote back to the Archbishop and said, we're not going to campaign. Unsurprisingly, the letter leaked. Who would have known that happened? And they crashed onto the news for all the wrong reasons. Over a period of about 7 days, they bleeded customers as people cancelled their accounts and set up with other mobile networks. Their internal staff networks were enraged and started to really, voice their opinion within the firm and demand to know what management was doing. Management then tried to ameliorate the position by having a halfway house. And they said, well, we're for marriage, but we won't campaign. And of course, that didn't work either. By day 7, having trended and been a national news story and having lost thousands of accounts and millions of dollars, plus countless amounts in reputational damage, they totally reversed their position and ended up saying we're for marriage equality and we're going to campaign for it. They were only interested at that moment of measuring the cost of values instead of measuring the cost of not having them. And I think the mind shift that I think our businesses have to do is that one. We have to start thinking about what is the cost of not having inclusion at the heart of how we think all the time. Because in the end, inclusion is who we are every day, how we treat people every day, and how we expect to be treated every day, which means that has to be in the core of our functioning every day, our thought processes, how we engage with others. And the great thing is everybody will notice when it's not. And Oliver touched on this, we hire really smart people, and it turns out they don't stop being smart the day they start work for us, which is great, but it means they can tell the difference between good PR and actually something that is an intrinsic core value that drives change. We're in the middle of Pride, as you can see behind me here, but it's such a good example. Pride, International Women's Day, Black History Month. inclusion can sometimes feel like this My Little Pony that gets pulled down from the bedroom shelf and shaked about for special events and go, here's My Little Pony, it's really cool, do you like it? And then it gets put back up. And if that is the level of commitments firms give to inclusion, the really smart people that they hire, which is other people, will notice that. They can tell the difference when something is a core value and when something is a t-shirt. So I think making sure that through supporting organizations like Open Doors, but also through the initiatives we run permanently in our firms, we have to be aware that people can tell whether we really mean this. And I think, I know it's been mentioned, we think about this year going, well, this was a challenging year, and you're going, yeah. And this is one of those moments when we really prove our values. Because if our values are luxury items, then we put them in the drawer when times are challenging. And everybody sees that. And the firms that choose to do that will have done themselves reputational damage, both internally and externally. Their own people will see that that's happened. And you spend years building up a reputation for being committed to a value, and it disappears in seconds if you abuse that trust and that reputation. And so I think over the last year, we really have seen that. And I think as we emerge from lockdowns and pandemics, we'll see again the firms that are really continue to put this at the heart of what they do. There's a little bit, I do think, and it's the only self-interested bit I'd say for firms as well, is, the job for life disappeared about God knows when, 40 years ago. And I think a lot of people probably thought, wow, employees are going to have no power now. The entire power is going to shift to employers. I don't think that's what happened at all. I actually think employees became quite powerful because once you realize you're not going to be somewhere for 45 years and do your 9 to 5 and get a carriage clock and a dinner dance at the end and thanks very much, goodbye now. Once you realize that's not your career, then that changes how you think about your career. Once you realize you're probably going to have multiple jobs and multiple roles in multiple places, potentially multiple continents, then you become discerning about where you want to work. And that's only going to increase. You can see that in real time, that trend increasing all the time. People deciding where they want to go and people leaving because they don't want to be somewhere that doesn't match their values. So this should be both a core value. This should be something that we take this great mind shift to go, I want to think about this on the basis of what's the cost of not having values rather than the cost of having them. And also it's an absolute economic imperative. So there's so many different reasons to come to the party on inclusion, and it doesn't really matter which reason you come to the party for, as long as people come to the party. And I think, this year has been a record year for inclusion. Next year, we'll only see that grow. And I think the work that you're doing to support organizations like Open Doors is precisely the type of value demonstration, that's essential, both for changing society and changing the culture within our firms. And well done. Most importantly than anything, well done, and thank you for doing that. I know this is a fantastic organization. And as you live your values as firms, this is a good place to invest. I know that. So in a very shortened version of what would be traditionally a very long speech, as we try to be respectful of people's time, I'm going to hand you back to Jan. And thank you so much, Jan, for having us today.
Thank you so much, Tiernan. And I love the idea of a permanent campaign. We may steal that as our motto. I love it. I think it's a great idea. And also that there is a cost to values. And I think it was all very pertinent what Tiernan said.